3 Al Jazeera journalists who have been jailed in Egypt since December have been sentenced to prison for aiding the Muslim Brotherhood.
Peter Grest, Mohammed Fahemi, and Bahar Mohammed were convicted of terrorism-related charges. The judge also handed down 10-year sentences to 2 British journalists and a Dutch journalist who were not in Egypt and were tried in absentia.
Peter Grest, Mohammed Fahmy, and Bahar Mohammed have been held in Cairo's Tora prison since December on charges alleging that they had conspired with the Brotherhood, spread false news, and were threats to national security. According to Mashable.com, Grest and Fahmy were both sentenced with 7 years and Mohammed with 10 years, an additional 3 for possession of ammunition, a charge stemming from an empty shell he had as a souvenir.
Man, does any of this make sense?
It's absurd. It's disgraceful. These men, the only crime they've really committed is journalism.
And the trial itself, I mean, seemed pretty much like a farce.
Absolutely. I mean, the kind of things, the evidence that was brought against them, they ran a video by an entirely different company, Sky News Australia. They used a BBC podcast as evidence. They aired part of a documentary on Somalia, also by the BBC. It had no links whatsoever to this Al Jazeera crew.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry spoke with Egypt's new president, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Sunday. Kerry says they spoke specifically about Al Jazeera journalists. Following the sentencing, Kerry said he was disturbed and felt that Egypt was taking steps backward in their transition. Despite their meeting, al-Sisi says he will not interfere with the justice system. According to CNN, there are currently 167 journalists imprisoned worldwide. Reporters Without Borders ranks Egypt 159th out of 180 countries for media freedom. According to Filipino network GMA, 134 journalists and media staff support were killed on assignment last year, most targeted deliberately. Syria is considered the most dangerous country for the press, followed by Iraq and the Philippines respectively. News shows across America are now fighting for the release of prisoners. CNN's Christiane Amanpour held a sign reading #FreeAJ Now her campaign has created a wave across social media, making Free AJ Staff and Journalism is Not a Crime trend on Twitter. BBC journalists and colleagues from other news organizations held a 1-minute silent protest outside the new broadcasting house in London Tuesday. But despite all the public sentiment, the verdict hasn't changed. Fahmy, with his curled fist, said, "I swear they will pay for this," following the verdict. While Fahmy's mother wept, his brother Adel says they will appeal the verdict, but added that he has no faith in the system, saying it is corrupt. CNN correspondent Ian Lee says that despite the verdict, there is a high likelihood that the judge could reduce the sentence or acquit them later on. That's a quick look at Al Jazeera journalists. I'm Ann Jacob.